So today I'm going to talk a little bit about scientific storytelling, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my background. My goal really is to try to make science engaging and sexy and really sort of palatable to a larger audience. And really the beginning of my sort of scientific curiosity started with, weirdly enough, fruit flies. I spent 6 years of my life at Rockefeller University working in a genetics lab, a cancer biology lab, and I spent those 6 years basically most of my time just looking at flies under the microscope. And I was amazed by how beautiful these fruit flies were under 100x and under fluorescent lights. And this is where I thought that it would be really interesting to take images and use images that are used in the lab as a way of telling stories. And so naturally, I was really interested in stuck in the laboratory and stuck at the microscope to tell stories where what I saw through the microscope had a parallel with the outside life. So my first films naturally revolved around fruit flies. I made my first film called A Fruit Fly in New York, which makes the parallels between fruit flies and humans. And then I also made a film about a scientist who falls in love with a girl that lives in a petri dish. And I became really, really interested in telling stories about science and narrative. But afterwards, I became much more broadly interested in what are the ingredients for scientific storytelling, and how do you make science stories, and how do you redefine science film so that it reaches a larger audience and not just a niche audience that we often see on TV, such as on PBS and Nova, which are great shows, but not necessarily reach a larger audience. And the most important ingredient is storytelling and narrative. You have to have a scientific process and scientific challenges that drive story plots, that drive character motivations. And the scientific data really needs to be demystified. And for that, the best way of doing that is to use visuals, and use visuals especially taken from research and taken from the microscope and time-lapse imaging and all kinds of animation, and using that to tell stories. The other big important thing is scientific lab needs to be used as a studio. And I used to go back to my lab late at night after I did all my research and use it as a set where I would use the actors and also the model organism, including the fruit flies, to tell stories about science, and also use the production value, the scientific instruments, to tell stories. And really the most important thing is that the scientist needs to be a modern hero. He needs to be vulnerable, he needs to be humanized, he needs to be relatable to people from the outside. And doing this, I started a company in 2008 when I was at Rockefeller, which is all about telling stories about science through narrative images and narrative stories. And the idea here is that you don't necessarily have to bend scientific truth in order to make science exciting. So we organize a film festival in New York that's in its 4th year. We have over 80 films that are going to be shown all around New York. In 3 weeks, we're going to launch our 4th year. It's going to be in different venues all around New York City. And the idea really is to create a dialogue between scientists and artists. And we also have different residency programs where artists and scientists collaborate to make short films, but also to do experiments. And we're expanding in a similar way as TED. We're creating an Imagine Science satellite, which is going to show these films in different countries, including Dublin, Mexico City, and Paris in the years to come. And so the idea really here is that you want to really, what's really interesting about it is that Imagine Science Film Festival was started by scientists that are frustrated with the ways that science is portrayed in the media. And they're the ones who really initiated this and made the Science Film Festival happen. And to finish, I just want to show one of our trailers from last year to make the analogy between what you look through under a microscope at a colony of cells in a petri dish, or at a tissue that has a complex microcosm, to use that as a way of talking about real life experiences and using that as a metaphor for that. So we had a trailer where we had a scientist going around the city as she was looking through the microscope. And I want to end with a quote by Einstein that's also kind of the main brand of Imagine Science, which is, imagination is more important than knowledge. Thank you.